Hi there, it's Marshall, November 2nd, 2024. I had fun yesterday just getting my tools and learning, remembering how to use them. So, and in a new way, I kind of talked to different friends over the years and hey, through Zoom, it was really easy and it went right into YouTube, super fast and efficient. So I'm going to go again because I think truly the video today probably was the one I was inspired to make yesterday, but I had that in my own personal cache. I needed to read that. I am a homemaker. But anyways, today is about medications and supplements. Which ones do you really need? Because the thing that actually inspired me yesterday to start back on YouTube again was Dr. Suneel Dhand did a video October 31st, 2024, which I watched yesterday morning, and it just took over my day. I'm like, I'm making a video because anyway, it's an 8-minute video, and he's an active practicing internal medicine physician who speaks quite freely, very concerned and dismayed by allopathic medical establishment and the way it's kind of working in the world. So I'm just like, wow, it's kind of, I found him, it's interesting. I tend to watch his videos only when they're shorter or the title caught me, but this one really caught me. In this video, he talks about like, and the other thing is I was accustomed to his videos. So he usually like me sitting here at his desk at home with his background of his home office, probably. Well, this time he was red stethoscope around. He said, I'm just coming from a quick break from work. I just got to make this video right now. He was sitting in his car. I'm like, holy. And the reason that he was so, and it kind of was an inspiration and a reminder to me. Sometimes when you get the impetus and the inspiration to do something, do it now. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm a day late. So anyways, it took me a day to kind of get the gear back. But anyways, it really struck me and reminded me of so many stories, which I'm going to share in this video, of my actual experience as a physician and even a little bit of me as a human being too. Um, what he called it, medication list as long as your arm syndrome. It made me laugh so hard. I'm like, oh yeah, like anyways, I was just like, wow, I watched the video, I was very inspired. So I went, just sat down and was like, I'm gonna make a comment, which I have done once before on his, and I rarely do these days. I just kind of in my own little bubble. But anyways, I'm just gonna read this relatively short, and then I'm gonna speak about all the memories. I talked to my son last night, and he really encouraged me to just, hey, share that stuff. That might be interesting to physicians and patients alike, because this is real world experience, even though it was almost 3 decades ago, or approximately 3 decades ago, because I am and I'll just read my comment. I'm a long ago retired family physician, worked 5 years full time, then opted out in around 1997. My favorite thing to do was to take people off medication, truly. I learned in training from a geriatrician to ask patients, bring in everything you take, both prescriptions and over the counters, just bring it all in, get your paper bag or two, bring it all in at the next visit. So I did that. That wasn't all in this comment, but may require a grocery bag or two. I just innocently stumbled into recognizing the issue of how confused patients were. Interestingly, a common response I heard was, but doctor, the other doctor put me on this medication for a reason. And I always thought in my head, if you only knew the reason, like they're not thinking that hard. They're kind of, I don't know, knee jerk, what do you call it? Like patient map. Anyways, I won't even try to put that into words. So 90% of patients were extremely reluctant to even attempt to wean medications. Like some of them, you'd be on them for 20 years. Well, your body's changed in 20 years. You're now like, you're 70 now, or you're 80 now. Like maybe we should be tweaking. Like, what the heck are you coming here for? I don't know. I just was really quite shocked at how it would clutch those medications. Like, oh, I need these medications. What's going to happen if I don't take these? What if I take less? And what if something happens to me? So fear, that energy of fear can really impact how you make decisions. Uh, so I became, oh, okay, oh boy. Oh yeah, here we go. They were, people would even say, can you guarantee, doctor, that it will be safe? And what do you mean by guarantee? But anyway, like I was reluctant to guarantee, but I was just so wanting to collaborate, wanting to improve their health. Like if you're taking too many medications and getting in the way of your body's function, I don't think that's ideal. But anyway, I was a young woman. Oh, here. Oh, goodness gracious. So, oh boy, that was very uninspiring for me. I became resistant to prescribing medications. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I grew up with that one. I was a young woman then and decided I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Oh, and I really did. Everybody told me, you can't. What about all that education? Very common. Everybody, except for my parenting partner. So that was good. He was the only one who kind of supported that. He was an important one to do that. So I lightheartedly share with you now. Indeed, I could be a stay-at-home mom. Best role ever, and I did. I found being a physician was not so good for my health. Dealing with people, I mean, I'm sorry, I think of it this way. As I remember back, I literally thought this way. So I'm really good at remembering my mindset. So back then, I had it in a nutshell. And I thought to myself, here I see almost everyone I see is either in a soul-sucking job or a soul-sucking relationship. And then they come to you with various complaints and not recognizing the connections. And I would try to make the connections, and they're like, what does that have to do with the doctor? And I would even say things like, do you have any spiritual practice, or what are your beliefs? And they're like, what does that have to do with this? So anyways, I just naturally asked them that, and that was never received very well. But anyway, so they're coming to me for the magic pills that would help them with whatever ailed them. To me, I came to believe, and still really believe now, food and mindset, consciousness, awareness are the foundation of good health. Yet the challenge, food as medicine, yet the challenge is what I call, long called, the unsustainable system of systems. Foundational vision in our systems would be a huge boost. My personal mission statement: to enable and empower optimal human health. This requires system change, and it is happening now. So everyone's getting a little excited. Some of us are getting excited. Let us all insist our systems are based on inspiring vision. Many hands make light work. I guarantee it. I can guarantee that. But anyways, that's the end of my reading today. We're not reading as much. I already got feedback from my friend, like, yeah, skip the reading, but I need a little seed to kind of get me going. But anyways, boy, that really reminded me. And talking to my son last night, it made me realize, yeah, it is worth making this video, because one of the questions I'll share with you, that geriatrician had suggested, get all their medications and get a good look. So I'll tell you how those tended to go. And I really enjoyed this. At the time, I was even thinking, I suppose a pharmacy assistant could do this, but I wasn't sure if those existed. But the truth is, to actually help collaborate, make decisions, you have to have a certain level of confidence to say, you know what, like let's try reducing your blood pressure pill. Or, like you take one and you kind of keep working at it. I don't know, to me, that really inspired me. And since the patients weren't inspired, I'm like, okay, see ya. I'm like, it just wasn't a match. I guess what I will say though, way back then, I do remember thinking, okay, we're trained as doctors. We come in, we have an idea of what we're supposed to do with patients, and patients come in, but the ideas were not at all, they were different. Like I thought my job was this, and they think their job is that. A silly little, I'm already getting rambly, but anyway, it wasn't so uncommon. And a couple of times it was really, really prominent, where a patient would come and say, doctor, I had this really sharp pain 2 weeks ago. It was right here. And then, oh, how long did it last? Oh, maybe less. And they were, oh, and I'm like, a minute, 5 minutes, half an hour, like just approx. And they're like, no less than a minute. And I'm like, oh, well, that's good. And settled right down, didn't it? And they'd be like, no, but what was it? I'm like, do we really need to go digging back? How am I going to know what that was 2 weeks ago that lasted 1 minute? And I just wanted to really emphasize, I have come to believe so strongly we have self-healing mechanisms. Like when something goes awry and it's done, like you don't need to come to the doctor in 2 weeks. Like, what happened 2 weeks ago? Like, no, done, dealt with. Like, I don't, again, it's not a bad idea though to keep track of symptoms, because symptoms are little messages from the body, and you want to sometimes one little message, and then if it's repeated more often, regular. But I mean, sometimes it was really quite isolated, and I'd have people really demand, like, well, what could that have been? Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? Like that kind of thinking, that's a mindset. It's like you're looking for trouble. Like, why? Why are you looking like that? I found that really like just shocking. I really was, you grew up in your own family and you have your own family culture, family of origin culture. So you really don't know how other people think. So when I got into practice, after being in medicine, seeing more acuity, a lot of the trainings of specialists. So I didn't really see that many low acuity patients. And I'm going to see low acuity patients, quote, low acuity, not as unwell, right? It's not as straightforward. And then you've got to, your people skills, communication, trying to get all the information that you need. But anyway, so yeah, so when in these people bringing the medication, bags of medication, so I would look at it and kind of go, like just kind of acting like a human being. I look at it, go, wow, that's a lot. Like, how do you keep track? Just curious, truly and sincerely, like all that's yours? Okay, well, which ones do you take every day? And then we try, and then so we just slowly categorize these ones occasionally, and then why. And I really just wanted to know that they understood what they were taking. So it's kind of, I guess it was a test. And I think, I feel looking back, it was a little affronting. Maybe they weren't expecting a doctor to ask these kinds of questions. I'm like, well, how do you know what to take? Okay. And I would tell them things like, okay, it's breakfast. How do you know? And they're like, and they would like really complicated. I'm like losing track of myself. I'm like, whoa. Like I didn't even care about whatever was written on the chart and what was supposed to be the prescribed medications. I like, what are they actually taking? And I guess talking to my son last night was kind of a eureka because I really hadn't considered back then, but I mean, now I realize, like, of course, it makes sense to know, okay, what are you actually taking? Because if I'm going to be prescribing you medications that you're not actually even taking, and like maybe I'm going to set you up with a dose set, like this is an example of a very simple dose set, but where it can remind you, like, if you're taking one a day things, I put my vitamins in here, so I just bought this for demonstration, but some of them come with 4 times a day. So there's, three more rows. So you've got 4 rows in every day. So breakfast, lunch, or whatever, bedtime. Like, how do you keep track? So I was kind of, if someone's really going to be on something and it's a little more complicated, dose set that you can do yourself, and even pharmacies would give services to pack it up, bubble pack it or whatever, make it easy for you to know, are you taking it? Did you remember it? But then there was a part of me like, I don't really want to help them to remember to take medications that they are so confused about anyway. In a lot of cases, I did get a sense they really weren't taking them. So, like here, officially on my chart, it says they take this BID, this, but they're not actually. Like they're so confused. I remember one patient that came in, there was a bottle of acetaminophen, Tylenol, and another brand name. So they had three that they were taking all of them. Like one had a generic name, one had a brand name, and they were taking them thinking they were different. I mean, like, actually, these are all three the same. Like it just seems like such simple, like that's the kind of disconnect I'm talking about. Like a doctor, I think there's even physician assistants in the States, which there aren't here in Canada. I'm in Alberta. But like, they make their proclamation and send off, there's your prescription, bye-bye. Like having no idea, like, are they connecting to this? Are they taking it? You might ask for side effects. And I may be wrong. Like I am so out of date. I'm a dinosaur, long ago retired. But I remember feeling there was just sort of this assumption. There was something, the other thing too is my mom was a really interesting addition to my education. She was a social worker first, then a lawyer. So those two careers actually did have an impact on how I responded to being a family physician. Because first of all, social work, I remember her really enlightening me to the idea that you can't assume people can even read. Like literacy is not 100%, even here in this Western developed world. And I was kind of shocked. I'm like, wow, okay, that was just worth knowing. So that's where, and then the other thing is somewhere in the process of training, I did learn, like, I would write a few notes. Like, it's one thing to say something and then often, like, some people can remember that way. But even for me, if I've had a conversation, there were some pertinent things, I put down the pertinent suggestions in note form. And here's your note. They might have lost it. They might have flushed it down the toilet. I have no idea. But anyways, I got in that practice. Like you can say something, a person can hear it, but that doesn't mean they've actually integrated and understood it. So anyways, I'm just adding more than I was planning to, but reminding myself back in the day and how, I guess it's just how I'm set up. So for me, it was a little overwhelming. And the other thing that I should mention that's unique, maybe not unique to me, but something I've become aware of now. I mean, here I am, 30 years after leaving, but I probably could call myself a medical intuitive. I'd also like to call myself a medical anthropologist, but I won't get into that part. But I never considered myself a medical intuitive. However, at the time, I remember thinking my right brain and my left brain were having arguments and they were almost never resolved. Like I thought, okay, I'm trained to be a doctor and a doctor has to do this, but so after my right brain and left brain were done fighting with each other, I did leave. I became a stay-at-home mom where the right brain and left brain can work in harmony and coherence, sort of. But anyways, I really did enjoy that time. And you're always learning, and life has lots of interesting experiences along the way. Yeah, so what else was I going to say about this when the patients brought their, yeah, so occasionally I would get someone who would be on board, like, oh, let's reduce this, and oh, and I always felt like it would. and I guess I can repeat myself. I've said the story many times in my various sharings. After 1 year of practice, I was pretty disillusioned and very dismayed. I'm like, wow, all this medical research and like, I'm really interested in optimal health. I want to, like, literally, I didn't word it out to myself, but I knew I wanted to help people be healthy. It's like, all this research doesn't help me do that. Like, I even vitamins, like, of course, there's no, and then I quickly, okay, there's no money in research into the basic things that are, even herbal, natural remedies wasn't really talked about too much. And I was a little bit indoctrinated with, even a chiropractor, like suspect. I don't understand that. Like when you don't understand something and you start poo-pooing it, that doesn't seem fair. So whenever people would tell me about chiropractor, I would usually just get curious. Oh, did it help you? Or like I didn't know anything. I knew that. I knew nothing about what a chiropractor did then. I knew nothing about what an acupuncturist did then. Like all these possible paramedical is probably not the right word, but other health care providers that had training that I didn't understand. I didn't pretend to understand. So I was always curious, and I was never like outwardly saying, "Oh, you shouldn't go there. You have to come see me." Like I was kind of like, "Oh, good." I'm actually kind of lazy, lazy by nature. I like efficiency. Many hands make light work. If a person can do for themselves, why do for them something they can do for themselves? And back then I didn't, but now I really have come to recognize we all have self-healing mechanisms, so many that I can't even conceptualize. Like I, I like to try, and I sometimes think I know something, but whatever, it works naturally. Like it's kind of like nature. The wildflowers grow and they know when to bloom and they make their seeds and they go to sleep for winter. Like I don't do anything for that. Just let them be. And I think humans can be more like that, but they do need proper environment, proper care, awareness of toxicity that might enter the system or roadblocks and barriers to health that might exist in their world and their life. Um, okay, so what else was I going to say? Well, yeah, I guess this isn't, I'm just going to share what comes up. One really interesting, feedback. It's hard to get feedback. I remember wanting feedback. Like, am I a good doctor? Am I helping anybody? I really wasn't sure after that first year. And I remember hearing at the time that you could get, anyways, that's irrelevant. So I didn't, it's hard to get feedback. Patients don't always give it. Sometimes they do. And I actually always appreciated when they did. And I had, being that I worked in a kind of a suburb city. It's called St. Albert, Alberta, just north of Edmonton. And then a lot of my patients came from rural areas, like smaller towns or rural. I really love those people. They're very down to earth, but they would talk back to me. They were like, "What? What are you talking about?" Blah, blah, blah. And then I would learn a lot from them. Actually, I'm like, "Oh, they're resistant to that idea." And I'd sort of it would make me pause and think and consider it. I'm like, actually, like I think they educated me. Like I went, "Oh, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to write prescriptions," but I'm like, yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense. And I would like have really good conversations, and I was really willing to listen and learn because people were quite knowledgeable. They were very natural and healthy. Like those were the healthy patients, and some of them were like so sweet. They'd come for their annual. I'm like, you're pretty healthy lifestyle. You probably don't need to go for an annual checkup. And I remember feeling like I was felt kind of bold, like maybe every 2, 3 years. Like you really don't need because yeah, that maintenance, health maintenance, wellness care. I was really interested in wellness care. So there's at the time there was like a kind of an idea. Okay, you're doing an annual physical. What do you include in the annual physical? So anyways, I get geeked out on that. I'm like, oh, there's this, there's that. And then I would go through, and I remember people would often say, but I just really enjoyed it. I'm just silly and I have fun. Like I'd get out the little knee-jerk hammer because everyone likes that, right? It's like it's not that pertinent to my annual checkup. But I remember who said, "Oh, you're so thorough, doctor." And I'm just like dong dong, and they would always laugh. So like it kind of lightened the mood, and I would get their tendons bouncing and look in their eye and look in their ear, like I almost like playing doctor. I enjoy playing doctor. Even at age 5, I was playing doctor with a little boy there, a couple doors down. But anyway, like I was playing doctor, and I actually enjoyed it, and I liked the patients, I liked the rapport. But I wanted like to feel that I was making a difference to their health. And I found it a little hard to figure that out. After about that 1 year, and I started thinking, okay, how am I going to fish through like there's so much? And I was noticing like overwhelmed with data. All this journals are just sent to you for free. And you know, pharmaceutical companies are paying for you to receive for free all these journals, and they have all kinds of studies in them. And you're like, oh. I look at these piles, like piles every month, even like a lot. It's like really makes your house untidy. So I got kind of had to make a system to like, no, I can't have these journals piling up. I even know of someone relatively close to me in my life, and he was internal medicine specialist, subspecialist, and he had his basement was full of journals that he would never want to, they're kind of at the time was more of a resource. We didn't have the internet in the same way. So that's like a few decades ago. But it's like, ooh, and he had them somewhat like piled up in sort of order so he could pull out journals. But anyways, it's pretty cumbersome to try and weed through all this data. I came to understand there was research that it could take 20 years for a really big breakthrough finding to actually make it out to the whole medical field of helper care, physicians, nurses, etc. I'm like, wow, this is not a slick situation. I remember in training carrying very large books of like peripheral brains and weighing down my shoulders. I'd be so sick, but you needed those books. They were your lifeline. Like I gotta look something up, and they were physical books back then. Now I'm sure people have them all on their phone, but peripheral brains do have their place. Oh, I am rambling. Okay, well, I guess what I'm going to do, like, oh, okay, I remember there was something I was. So with that in my past, oh, and I have to tell you my one. Speaking of feedback, I was getting to the idea that I rarely got feedback, but I did get feedback once on this practice. I did my very first locum 2 months in Lacombe, Alberta, which is a rural place. I'd never worked harder in my entire life. I was like, frick. When I was in training, you'd be like 1 in 3 call, like 1 in 4 call, 1 in 5 call. It was like, ooh, easy street, 1 in 5 call. Well, I get there and it's like, I hadn't even started. I got there on July 1st. I was supposed to start on July 2nd. July 1st is a Canada Day. It was a holiday. So I arrived there, get into my room and board place, and they're calling me, okay, Dr. Bodway, there's a baby. I'm like, no, I start tomorrow. They're like, you start now. I'm like, oh, okay. So I went and delivered a baby. Then the next night, oh, you got to come in and help be for the baby because someone else is delivering a baby. I'm like, oh, second night, okay. But it was in the evening, didn't disturb my sleep by chance. And then you're on call, and then you're in emerge, and then you're doing ORs. And like, oh my God, I did everything. But I did have a lot of symptoms of stress. And I'm like, ooh. But I think that wasn't completely the way it was for those physicians. But I was covering for the summer, each one in turn. So like they made good use of their locum, let me tell you. Work until 8 p.m. seeing patients, because sometimes you're called to go and emerge, when you're on call, and then your patients have to wait. And sometimes you get to decide, do I let them come after I'm done? And often they were so nice, actually, the patients, they were so accommodating. And so like instead of seeing them at 2, they'll see me at 5 p.m. And then we just see the patients that I would have seen in the afternoon. I'll see them in the evening, and then emerge and this and that. But anyways, I had a couple of really good successes, but one of them would not have reached my ears if it wasn't for my mom. We share a last name. I kept my birth name as a physician, and she was a lawyer. And so someone from Lacombe came to her, oh, do you know? And yeah, that's my daughter. Like, oh, she helped my mom so much. So I guess that was one of the ones who listened to me and got her off all these medications. And so I got the feedback back. That was the one case that actually, but I only worked 5 years. So I guess I didn't give the patients much chance to give me feedback. But if they didn't come back and see me and I couldn't ask them, I wouldn't know. So I just didn't stick around long enough to get a lot of feedback. But that was really sweet to hear that, this person remembered my name. I was just a locum, and I guess they just were so amazed that I got their loved ones off of a lot of medication. So, and then my mom was really proud. You heard of my daughter? She's famous, which I'm not. So, anyways, that was a fun little feedback. Okay, well, I will tell you the other major victory in Lacombe, Alberta. I mean, oh, we all have our little pet. I loved plastics and like sewing and putting. I like putting people back together. Like I don't know, I was pretty capable and I really. When I was a medical student, I thought I wanted to be a plastic surgeon. So all my elective time I did in plastics, which was kind of funny, but I learned a lot. You always learn whatever you do. So I felt pretty proficient in that field. I was very, and then emerge. I loved emerge, but I don't really like advanced trauma, like car accidents I'm not so skilled at and never really wanted to be. Luckily in Lacombe, that was one of the reasons I went there. Major motor vehicle accidents would have gone to Red Deer. It was very close to a big enough city that they would not even bother coming to a small hospital like Lacombe, Alberta. So anyways, one day a guy comes in, his hand was just macerated. He had somehow, they're very practical trying to fix his lawnmower and it went off and his skin was so many lacerations. And I just looked, ooh, like I, and then there was one guy, one of the fellow physicians, they're kind of keeping an eye on the locum, like, oh, she's not making too much trouble. So he looked at this. And he was often over my shoulder in the OR and he's double checking me and he's going, oh, pretty good. Like, and he looked at this, go, oh, you got to send that. I'm like, no, I don't think so. And the patient's going, doctor, please don't send me to Edmonton. Don't send me to Edmonton or Red Deer. It would have been Edmonton, actually. And I'm like, no way, man. Those guys all know me. I'm not sending this. I can do this. Like I've heard from as I was training, they're always bashing the family doctor, like, oh, I'm not gonna do it. Sometimes it's a schedule thing, but I'm like, no way, I gotta do this case. I'm totally capable of doing it. And I just really enjoyed it. I just, attack the corners, you do it bit by bit by bit. There was no tendon injury, there was no nerve injury. It's like, wow, what a perfect little, like it was like a little star. Anyways, he was so great. He's like, please, doctor, do. I was like, absolutely. But this guy's like, And I said, listen, I really feel comfortable doing this case. And of course, that was the night where everyone had to, I just put off all my patients in the office. No, I'm doing this case. I love this. So I did it. I told him, he goes, oh, okay, I want to show you when it's better. And I think it was near the end. And I said, okay, I'll be in St. Albert. And I told him exactly where I'd be. Well, many weeks later, he came and showed me his hand. It's beautiful. So anyways, I mean, there is a place for allopathic medicine, but that was a really cool case for me that he made a point out of his way to show me the results because he was so grateful and happy that I would do it and not send it off to a plastic surgeon. I mean, I'm telling you, that would have been a huge delay and hassle for his life. And they would be going like, this is not, for them, it's easy peasy. And I just happened to have a little bit extra skills. And that happened one other time in one of my other locums at the very end of my short career where people say, oh, you can't do them. I'm like, well, absolutely I can. Like, you got to know what you can do, what you can't, what you know and what you don't know. But anyways, that was a lovely victory for me. Yeah, so I wanted to get to the idea of that I kind of have to admit I am a medical intuitive of some sort, but in a way, I think we all are. And that's partly why I want to share this. But like, here I am, I'm a doctor, not knowing I'm also medical intuitive. Like, at the same time, knowing I'm intuitive and knowing my intuition was fighting with my training. It's like, duh. It took me decades. And then I ended up meeting a lovely woman, became a friend and collaborator. Met her in 2015. And she did crystal sound bowls. Like I have the whole set of them here myself. Like I really got into it and started connecting with her. I was going to open a store. I bought $150,000 worth of these thinking I was going to open a store. Well, I didn't open a store. So I had a lot of bowls, which I've been slowly selling ever since. I think I'm down to about 13. So anyways, I'm playing with them right now. I had them with the friend who was selling them on my behalf. And then I took them all back just to kind of play with them again. That was about a month ago. And I'm actually having a lot of fun. My son and I were playing last night. It was great. But anyways, this woman, so like, her name's Martha Burkett. She is beautiful, just very well renowned. She's in central Alberta. I met her at a New Earth Expo in Calgary that I actually had my own booth at. But anyways, that's another story. So I met her. I heard these bowls. I'm like, what is this? And I bought 4 that day. And then we just connected and we just kept connecting. And so it turned out once I really shared that I really love these bowls. I had 10 in my personal collection. And then I'm opening a store, which that balloon just, that wasn't the right job for me. And I can see now why that wasn't a good idea. But anyway, she would tell everybody in her public sound bath. So there might be 10, 15 people, 20, who knows. I find out over time that she's telling, oh, Angel Baudouin in Edmonton, she's a medical intuitive. So people will be calling me, hey, hi, I heard you from Martha. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm not really a medical intuitive. Like I kept saying that. And I tell Martha, hey, Martha, maybe you shouldn't call me that. She's like, no, no, you are. She just insisted. And I'm like, okay. But I'll tell you what's interesting, because I think when you say something like medical intuitive, what does it mean? To me, I had an idea of what it meant. And I ended up through Martha, very early on after knowing Martha and attending out of another person attending a sound bath with me, was a true, what I considered a medical intuitive. Like she was so intuitive that she would look at someone and like literally their liver would come out and say, I need this, and like really specific data, right? And I'm like, that's a medical intuitive. So I'm not that kind of medical intuitive. So, anyways, I just thought that was so interesting. So I did meet her. She remains a friend and collaborator, and yet at the same time, she's so powerfully intuitive. But it's not been that easy for her to navigate. So, anyways, like she only takes referrals on like you've got to know someone, and she just doesn't want to deal with sometimes. I don't know, it's just a lot to deal with. Like humans, we're all complicated. We all have different beliefs. Placebo effect and nocebo effect. It's kind of a big deal. So one of these people, I became friends with quite a number of those who called saying, I'm looking for medical intuitive, and Martha gave me your name. I'm like, so anyways, I'm always honest. So this one said, no, no, Martha, like, can we just meet? And so she was in the Edmonton area too. So I said, oh, sure, let's do an experiment. Let's collaborate. And I told her, bring everything you take. And it was two giant, or maybe it was three, like Safeway bags, those old-fashioned plastic bags that no longer exist, but they were full of stuff. But most of hers were over the counter. She was someone who was diagnosed with cancer, had really dealt with it, felt she was cured, but she had this lots of stuff. So I just kind of thought, okay, let's see what happens. And I had no idea what I would do, but I just looked at, and I use a pendulum. This is a pendulum, citrine pendulum. There's made of many different kinds, many different fashions. I consider myself strongly clairsentient, clear feeling. And so there's something about to me, a yes, show me a yes is like that, show me a no is like that. And I've been practicing for over a decade. So I feel really confident in it now. But at the beginning, like I do think this is a good idea, this or some way of tapping into your own knowing. Like your own body can tell you things. So a pendulum is one tool that could help you kind of tune into that. So I just basically told her, like every time, like I will vibe for on your behalf, but at the same time, if it doesn't feel right to you, go with yours, not mine. So anyways, we went through and I got her down to about 1/3. And so off she went. And then she wanted, like, what do you charge? I said, well, I'm pretty flexible and open to creative exchange. So she said, okay, I have a really big garden. And I think this was in the spring. So a really big garden greenhouse. She's on a rural property nearby. She said, oh, I'll bring you some stuff. So she kept turning up once it was time for harvest, like really big load, like 2 bags of produce and beautiful, beautiful food as medicine. She returned to me, and I was like, oh, just like the old days, like we did that collaboration. And I many months, couple months later, got all these, tomatoes and beets and potatoes and carrots, like just so many. And then she came a second time with another huge, like, so twice she came in exchange for this because and then every time I would receive vegetables, I get an update. And she just did perfectly well. She just really got on it. Just that little thing that we had together, she went and took over her own care. Perfect. Like that's really how I want to work. If there's one little step up, and then you go, fly free, be good. And she was like, I connected with her. It's probably been a couple years, but anyway, she received her cure. And then she even recognized I'm really scared to stop anything, like what's safe. And so I kind of just reminded her, hey, you can ask yourself and you can figure it out. So I don't know, I thought that was a story worth sharing. I do experimental sessions all the time. I should say irregularly. It's not that big a thing. It may be a time where I'm open to doing that again, but at the same time, I really, based on how my experience went as a physician, I don't like to do futile work. And I don't really know that much. I'm just intuitive. I have my ideas and they're always shifting and changing, and I'm learning. And I just think everyone can do it for themselves. So that many hands make light work. Can you imagine? Like, I can totally. Like, more and more people just get in tune, don't take toxins, take things that are healthy. Let's ensure our food is, as optimum as it can. But even aside from that, you can actually bless your food. Like, if with sincerity and from your heart you bless your food, that food is not the same as before you blessed it. I really believe that. Like, these are all physics concepts, like the physics of consciousness, which it's underrepresented, I think, in our education system. It's not really included. Even the idea that, quantum physics discoveries were kind of made in the physics departments around the world, Einstein and all the gang that were having vigorous scientific discussions, which I'm not aware of them happening now. Maybe they do. I wouldn't know because I don't try to interact with them. But I do like the idea of collaboration. Everyone brings their input at a round table, discuss, like so much of our medical research ends up a bunch of specialists who all think the same, sitting at a round table and making proclamations. It's not as scientific as you think, but with the quantum physics principles, I really believe that research is not as helpful as we've been kind of entrained to believe, because every person is different. The context has to be taken into account, and you influence the context. And, your beliefs of what you believe might help you and what you believe wouldn't help you have a huge impact. Like if you really are just loving the taste of a strawberry and you eat it and you just think of it as food as medicine, you eat that strawberry. I mean, that strawberry is medicine for you. Well, medicine, for lack of a better word, but is nourishing for you, I guess is a better way to put it. So speaking of food as medicine, the one thing I ate today so far, Spartan apples. I don't even know if that shows backward, but anyway, Spartan apples have been few and far between. They've just been, it's my favorite apple in Colombie-Britannique, British Columbia. So they're close to home relatively. And I love them. And I found them for the first time in over a year. And I bought them and they're delicious, the perfect texture, the perfect taste. Like a true seasonal apple. They used to be more available through more of the year, but like Macintosh apples are available all year, even though I know the harvest is just happening or just recently happened. So that idea of like, I remember as a kid where things were truly in season, and then all of a sudden everything is always there. It's like, huh, how does that work? So, anyways, I'm kind of, but I mean, I vibe. I'll use, I don't use my pendulum at the grocery store, but I do the lean test. Will I like this? Will this be nourishing for me? So I'm always asking and testing with my body. And when I saw these apples, like zing, lights right up, and I love them. And my son is loving me too. He's never been, he wasn't aware of how good they were because he just never picked them, I guess, when I used to buy them when he was younger. But yeah, so just like testing out, like intuitively taste. Like for baked goods, if I see some baked good, will I like it? It's usually a no, because it's too sweet, weird oils. Like I do my own baking if I want to eat something baked, mostly, but not exclusively. But I like, we've got to curate our life, curate everything. Like speaking of curating, right now I have, some incense burning, vanilla sweetgrass. I vibe. This is a really nice. I'm not that knowledgeable about incense. I have some. I'm really into DoTerra essential oil. So like these kind of things are kind of nourishing. This little thing is like motion sensing, but also you can. So it just goes like that, and then it'll sense. So, anyways, these things I've got a little bit of music, which I don't think you're hearing playing. So, all these things I curated for my moment. But, anyways, and then I think what I will do is this is what I take every day, but this just started yesterday. So I've got calcium, strontium, and I only started these a couple months ago. This is a micronutrient thing, and nicotinic acid, which is flushing niacin. I don't know if that's going to show backwards, but nicotinic acid, 500 milligrams. I take one of these a day and I get a big flush, open all my little micro capillaries. I just like that feeling. And then you feel kind of chilled after. But anyways, for some people, taking 500 milligrams of this would be very distressing. They would be going to emergency. So if you were at all inspired to try nicotinic acid, take 100 milligrams. You can buy 100 milligrams, try one, and then you can work your way up. I mean, once you take it every day, some days don't even really have that big of a flush. But if I like skip it for a week, then I'll get a big flush. And it's really dramatic. Like your face turns all red and you feel kind of itchy. But anyways, I like that. It's kind of a grounding thing for me. But this one is new. It's omega-3 fish oil, and it comes with turmeric, curcumin. But I just vibe this really good. And I got this advice from a friend. And I'll show you. This is so dramatic. I only took it once yesterday, and this is my second time. They say to take it on a full stomach, and I just had that apple. Look how orange it is. But it is amazingly good tasting. And it talks about being like no burp. So, anyways, I've almost never taken fish oil, but I felt called to. Like I'm really focused on my brain, trying to maximize, optimize. Another thing that I don't necessarily take every day, but I love harmonic arts and lion's mane. I'll often put in my cooking. So I use this powder for my cooking. I used to take Shilajit quite regularly. I love Shilajit, but this is a powdered form, which I'm having trouble figuring out how I want to take that. But the tar form, I like the taste personally, which is very earthy and a little bit strange. You might not like it. And then I tinctures. This is a local girl made shaga reishi tincture, so I'll tincture things up from time to time. I even have lion's mane in a cream form. Like I just take lion's mane every which way, and at my farmer's market, I'll buy fresh lion's mane. That hasn't been that's was very minimally available, but when I see it, I always buy it and cook up something with it. Like lion's mane is just such a magical mushroom. Oh yeah, and the other thing I'm going to do is right in front of you. I'm going to take my daily. Like I just take one a day, but for different. True Hope is an amazing company. The backstory is incredible. I've come to personally know the people who started that and continue that. But anyways, this is kind of micronutrients because in our food, sometimes if you miss little minerals, like you, so this one is kind of designed for children, and it's really got a lot of actual research showing like people who were labeled kids, ADHD and whatever, give them these micronutrients, and then it's so many of our behavioral things might be kind of a form of malnutrition in a way. So nutrition is more important than I think we've been. So this is just a powder and it goes in your mouth and you let it dissolve there and hold it for about 30 seconds and then swallow it. So once a day. Oh yeah, and in my dose set, I'll take later 2 calciums and 1 flushing niacin. Calcium's supposed to be with food, so I'll probably take that with supper. But oh yeah, and then the strontium is this one's pretty impressive. My friend has been on it for 12 years, and she came to, I think she was maybe even diagnosed with osteoporosis. So men, they have bone densities. I'll never get a bone density myself, but bone density tests take this for 6 months to a year, and they're seeing significant increase in quality and quantity of bone. So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And I think it's a Canadian company, so Algical. And then the strontium, you take one of these to 2 of these. I'm taking half of what they recommend, 2 a day, 1 a day, but they can't be taken together. So I do find that a little bit of a hassle. But I'm kind of 2 months into this little system because actually I did a scan on my own body and my bones. You know, it's funny, as much as I know all this stuff, sometimes you don't get around to doing it for yourself. But a few months ago, I tapped in and my bones were saying, yeah, we need some attention. And what kind of attention? You know, I had to kind of wait to get sort of a message and thought, yeah, okay, let's take some calcium. I just ran out of vitamin D. Now I'm still going to have to figure out what I do about that. I think I want a really slick version of vitamin D. I don't know, but sunshine, I do believe there's a threshold that you can reach, and then all of a sudden you're able to make a lot of these vitamins. Not really make them, but like your body doesn't need these details about the nutrition are less relevant. There's a threshold. Once you're over that threshold, then energy's flowing and you're able to become kind of a little factory for goodness of all the things your body needs. But that is related to the sun, like directly, and the energy moving through, like Qigong practitioners, Falun Gong, running energy through your body so that these optimal health states can be achieved. So I do see that. I don't know that much about that myself, but I kind of am intending like naturally to how you breathe, how you not have too rushed of life. You do have to have some casualness. Okay, well, that was a lot more maybe than I was, but I'll just show you other things that excite me. I'm really into flower essences. To me, this is like soul therapy. And this book I use, and someone had laminated a card to include all of the Bach floral essences, and then what did I do with my little pendulum? I can quickly, like, this is what I would have done for that girl too, actually. Whenever I connect and collaborate with someone, I'll just go through and there's often 1 or 3 essences that are pertinent for them right now. And I offer my suggestion, oh, these 3, and then they can look up. All the details are in this book. I know where I go for natural health products, they have a copy of this book there. So you just look up and it'll tell you. Let's see, like just an example is they just give a short description about, what would be involved with that. So I love flower essences and I like the Bach flower essences. And there was another card in here for another company that I've become aware of. Tree Frog, where did it go? I just saw it there. Anyway, it's called Tree Frog Farm, Seattle, Washington, I think around that area. Hey, oh, I just looked at it and I saw it, but anyway, here's a bottle, Tree Frog Farm. I really like theirs too, and I have laminated, I made a laminated copy for myself of their summary. So between those two, I work with those. And, and I'm just being silly, show and tell. This is kind of a bag I used to use when I was a doctor, but now it's filled with all kinds of messages from the body, kind of different. And then that box floral essences would be in there. Oh, here's my Tree Frog Farm description of all the different. But yeah, anyways, I have my little oh, here it is, oh, right here. Yeah, between that card and this card, I can kind of tap in really quickly. What people might need. What else is in there? Oh yeah, there's 2 volumes to messages in the body, so it's quite a bit. Giving little hints of what the foundational source might be when a physical symptom comes up. Anyways, I could do more information about that if anyone is interested, but I guess I was just trying to give a little reflection of myself and how I look at health. I think it was my initial intention was to be really practical, but the idea of like if you were a patient or if you were a doctor, if you're a doctor, I'd be so interested if you had, because my son asked me, goes, "Oh, do you think everybody had that approach?" And actually, I didn't really consider it at the time, and I never talked to any of my colleagues about it. I just took it on like I was kind of an insecure on one level. Like we were so busy socializing, we just didn't compare notes that much. I did have a journal club and, get serious and talk about certain studies that caught our attention and we'd share that way. But outside the journal club, I didn't, and then somehow that never came up. So now I'm super curious. Like, is this a typical thing for doctors? Or I got a sense for myself, though, that I was just somehow on 1 week in geriatrics for some random reason. And this person just happened to demonstrate this. And I thought, wow, that's a really good idea. Yeah, so I have no idea if that's typical for other physicians, but I really latched onto that. And then for patients, just to actually really get curious. I think that would be my biggest message is to be curious, maybe willing to consider whatever your concepts and beliefs are about health and medications, maybe be a little bit open-minded to see, because the other thing I've come to, truth can be quite relative. I mean, there's a relative truth that, okay, you take this blood pressure pill, lower your blood pressure. But in the long run, aren't you looking at like, what would be my highest quality of life? Is this, if my blood pressure runs a little high, is it really going to have that much of an impact on my life? Often not. Like, I think that blood pressure is one that, as Dr. Suneel Dhand, I'm going to link the the seed inspiration video in the description. Just you can watch the 8 minutes if you want, and he speaks. And really, I felt the very same. Like high cholesterol, high blood pressure. Why? Like as a population, if you in some of these studies, I think if you have never read the actual studies, they'll be talking about lowering the systolic by 5 on average, and then we see this slightly lower mortality rate. Like for you individually, though, like if you're really attending to things, like when you consider that there's so much in the context of that pooled population of people, and they're only looking at a few tiny little things, like there's so much context missing in all those research studies. They do their best, they try, but I mean, like, we're all unique. And like, there's so many quirky things about every single person. Like, let's say you're from the Mediterranean country, and so you eat like that. Like, Mediterranean diet is known to be quite healthy, and so then you've got that on your side. And even the idea of genetics, oh, my dad or my mom, like, no, epigenetics, we actually can have conversations with our genes. Like even the fact that I wear this peridot, I wear it specific, and it doesn't match what I'm wearing today and often most days. So I actually try to wear more green just because I'm always wearing this lately. It's relatively new to me, but I consider this as part of the treatment of my mitochondria. I know that may sound really weird, but look at this big whack of stones. I found it totally serendipitously in a goldsmith shop in Canmore, Alberta. I was just driving through and innocently and like, oh, I really like this. And I mean, he said, that's been sitting there for 6 years in the display case and nobody ever had interest because they were going to the goldsmith shop for gold things. So anyways, I bought this and And I came to learn like directly, I guess learning directly, having your own experience, but you've kind of got to attune yourself. But I've read up on many people who have felt like a lot of different crystals have different properties. And this one I'm specifically wearing for my cellular energy production optimization, my mitochondria. I also really experimented recently, but I'm not right now, with high dose melatonin. And that was kind of fun. And I learned that, yeah, that has some benefit, and yet I can do it without the melatonin. So that's another key factor, I guess, is anything that can be done with an outside thing, your body probably can also evolve to do without the thing, like taking the thing. I don't need to take the melatonin because the melatonin just kind of reminded my body of a few things, got my and that was before I got the peridose. So, anyways, I was really experimenting hard. There's actually quite a lot of YouTube about high dose melatonin. It really twisted my mind because my medical mind, what? Like melatonin, the way I thought of it was to relate to sleep, related to the pineal gland or whichever gland. And really, it is more relevant in the mitochondrial function. Yeah, so that's just one little, that was kind of new to my mind, kind of expanded my mind. And now I don't know what to think. But at the same time, if someone feels really good about something and they want to do a trial with it, and they're relatively in tune with who they really are, it will be so. Like your wish is your command. So I've rambled way longer than I was planning to. Do I have anything else I want to show you? No, I think that was all I think I've said a lot of what I wanted to say today. I might not even publish this. Who knows? We're going to find out. So, anyways, signing off for today. I don't know where this is going, but I decided to follow my inspiration to share some really simple, basic health choice, how we can make choices in our health, and to be consciously aware that we have lots of choice and you don't have to know everything. And you can actually get in tune with your body, and your body knows a lot more than you might think. Anyways, there's lots of people, I'm sure, all over the world who, wherever you live, there's probably someone who will teach you about this. They could call it dowsing, using a pendulum, or just muscle testing. I've heard it called. I mean, a way to connect to yourself and your inner knowing. Your body knows. There's messages from your body when it has symptoms. It might have some ideas. And when you get curious, then the ideas just sort of find you. Like asking the question is really much more important than landing on some kind of conclusive answer, because just like, oh, I wonder if I can improve my bone. Like for me, I like my bones. And then I was talking to my friend and she's telling me how she's been 12 years on. I'm like, actually, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to start taking that. Like it's not like I went out looking in any, like on the internet. I just wondered. And then my friend happened to tell me about algae cow. So I felt good about it. And they have quite a bit of research. And actually, so does True Hope. And they not only does True Hope have a lot of research, they also have like phone lines. They kind of came into being to help people come off of psychiatric medications of any kind. But the truth, you can't just start taking these. You have to kind of wean the medications as you increase these. And at first, you start taking more than just one a day. I can't remember the exact. I took it in capsule form to start with. I always have these because if I run out of these, then I have capsule form. But I actually really like the taste of these, and I find them easy and nice to take with or without food for me. But I think for some people, they might be upset stomach if they don't take it with food. Anyways, we have to all figure out how our little bodies work, and we can do it. Many hands make light work. Woohoo! Signing off.